I'm Zach. I want to talk to you about COVID and what you're saying. I get your point, and that that viruses are our friend. Um, and so, what do you? I mean, this thing is so baffling, isn't it? Because it really doesn't. It doesn't behave like any virus that we've ever seen. Larry Palevsky said to me recently, he said, every other virus that we've seen, it causes you to expel things. It causes you to expel snot and cough and expel liquid from tears from your eyes and to break out in rashes. And this thing doesn't have any of that. There's so much speculation about what's causing it, whether it's a virus, clearly it's real and it's happening and something is killing all these people. But what is your diagnosis and what is your prescription?
Beautiful. So there certainly is coronaviruses. They've been around for, documented some 750 years in the human biology. So we've had them around for centuries. Coronaviruses mutate all the time, just like all the viruses are mutating at rapid rates whenever biology decides that there needs to be an adaptation event. So if a pig or a bacteria in the middle of China under the stress of massive antibiotic pressure from the agricultural system that's so toxic, and then it's trying to find a loophole or an escape mechanism to get out of the extinction level pressure that bacteria or that pig is under, it's got the ability to take in viral information, reconfigure it or misspell it and put it back out in the environment. So biology is constantly churning out adaptation versions of viruses, and the more pressure we put on biology, the more stress we put biology under, the faster it makes viral components, viral variants. And so the diagnosis that we have in the past year is, first of all, we were waiting for this to happen. There was going to be a big event in 2019, 2020 flu season, and it could have been any virus. We chose to highlight coronavirus, but I'm convinced that it was many viruses that caused this far beyond coronavirus. Why? Because in 2018-19 flu season, we had the lowest mortality, especially in elderly, that we had seen from flu in over 7 years. And so we had pent-up demand at the mortality level of the high likelihood that the next year coming around, we had a population that had aged another year, another accumulation of chronic disease and age, and now they're going to be exposed to the next viral season. So we were going to see a relatively high mortality no matter what, because of that simple reality that we had less death the year before. And so that was the setup for what we would end up calling a pandemic. We have pandemics all the time. We've had 12,800 documented viral respiratory pandemics since 1976 when we added glyphosate there. That is a huge acceleration event since the previous 25 years before that. So we have pandemics on a weekly basis of viruses that we can track around the globe that are traveling with new variants that cause common cold or respiratory flus or pneumonia or whatnot. And so we have all these viruses there. So we were set up for a bad 2019-2020 respiratory season. We then chose to peg it on a single virus, but that virus is only present in the bloodstream, and CDC's put this out, WHO, they all say that the virus is only present in the bloodstream at any measurable level for 3 to 5 days. And it usually peaks around your first day of symptoms, meaning that within a day and a half or two after your symptoms come on, there's no more virus detectable in your bloodstream. And of course, the mortality that comes downstream is weeks later. And so to say that we're dying of any virus is very inaccurate at the science level. What we're dying from is a cascade of immune events that happen on the tail end of exposure to a new viral variant that's not in a healthy relationship to our innate immune system, which has been damaged by all of our chemical environment. And now we're generating an inflammatory adaptive immune system response when we should have just been in simple balance with the innate immune system. The innate immune system never makes an antibody. It doesn't need one. It's not killing anything. It simply edits the genomic information flowing into our cells. It also blocks that genetic information from ever entering our cells. And so it's not until we lose the innate immune system that the adaptive immune system even becomes a significant discussion point. But it never is responsible for clearing the virus. And so when you describe the snot and the usual expelling symptoms that are coming from a common cold, for example, that's not the virus causing that. That's your immune system building a cleanup result. And your mucus is actually a bunch of dead cells that are just being expelled from the body and cleaned up. It turns out, though, that this virus doesn't cause widespread damage within the respiratory tree. It actually causes most of its change in physiology in the red blood cell. And by changing the shape of the red blood cell, we get this, toxicity of hypoxia. And so people are dying from hypoxic injury in the last, 18 months. We've chosen to call it COVID-19, which is the syndrome, not the virus. The virus is SARS-CoV-2. So SARS-CoV-2 is present for 3 to 5 days, gone, by way of the innate immune system, by the way. It takes weeks later before any antibody will develop, meaning that the antibody had nothing to do with clearance of the virus. It's very important for anybody who's asking themselves, should I take a vaccine or not? The vaccine can only make an antibody response. It does nothing to help your innate immune system actually stay in balance with viruses. And so when you ask yourself, should I take a vaccine? You aren't even asking the right question from a science standpoint. The science would say that a vaccine has nothing to do with your relationship to viruses. Your innate immune system has everything to do with your relationship to viruses. So what you do, you should have a diverse microbiome, which means you should be outside as much as possible, grow gardens, get outside as much as you can, fresh air, fresh soil, all that. And so what we need to do is realize we're dying from hypoxic injury, not from some viral infection. And the location of this coronavirus hitting respiratory epithelium and then making us prone to this injury to the red blood cell, which then changes the oxygen carrying capacity, and the event at the science level is called histotoxic hypoxia. Histotoxic hypoxia is caused by cyanide in the air. And so the most common toxin that we find, and actually Earthjustice sued the US government months before the pandemic, that we were seeing cyanide levels higher in our inner city environments than we had ever measured. And they sued for the government for not putting out warnings of cyanide poisoning, which is going to look exactly like COVID-19. It turns out that this virus, coronavirus, binds to a carbon molecule in the atmosphere in air pollution called PM2.5 that carries cyanide. And so the virus became a vector for cyanide. And so what we have seen in the last 20 months is a consistent viral experience where you might get a little cough, you might get this, but then another percentage of the population is getting a much deeper injury of hypoxic injury, this histotoxic hypoxia from air pollution combined with the virus as a carrying agent in. So the toxicity isn't really from the virus at all, but from all the junk it's capable of carrying into the cells. So we're dying from our, the poisoning of our own environment that we've toxified, which is some sort of poetic justice probably. But it's a tiny little ditzel in our march toward extinction. If anybody thinks this has been bad this last year, take a look at human population, which continues to go like this over the course of this past year. Wait until you see the real extinction event tip in. When we start to bury millions and millions of people, we are going to start to realize what real extinction is going to look like. We haven't even started to see the problems we've created, but we can avert the crisis if we rapidly adapt to Mother Nature's pathway.
Zach, I hate to let you go.
We'll do it again.
I got a million other questions for you.